Hello, everyone. This picture right here. I am here to go through with you how we are going to make our Emily Carr inspired tree art. So first I'm going to go through with you the things that you're going to need. So I'm using my webcam, which is not the best quality camera, so I apologize if it's a little blurry. I'll go nice and slow. So you're going to need, I just have a plate. This is just like a plastic plate that I've covered in tinfoil. And on it I have some green paint, some white paint. It's hard to see, but this is black paint here. I've kind of mixed them together a little bit. Brown, blue, and yellow. Okay, you're going to have some paintbrushes. You're going to need to have a pencil or a pencil crayon, as well as a Sharpie marker or a very, if you had a pastel, like a black pastel or a black crayon would work. We're going to use that for the very end to outline our artwork. Okay, so first thing I'm going to just go to my art now. So we're going to start kind of at the bottom of our page, just a little bit up. So, start about here. We're going to draw just a nice big wavy line. You'll notice a lot of wavy lines in Emily Carr's art. Emily Carr wasn't so concerned about making things look perfect in her art style. Her style is more about sort of like the feeling that you have as you draw and the feeling that you have when you're looking at something. So we're going to use these wavy lines that give us sort of a feeling of movement in her artwork. So the first part we're drawing is the foreground, or the things that are closest to us as we draw. So we're going to draw a big tree. Now, trees are usually bigger at the bottom, and they get skinnier as you go up. And these are sort of like the branches up here. And then I'm going to do a second tree. Maybe this tree might be a little bit off the page because it's so big. So I'm going to draw a big tree up like this. Emily Carr was kind of a cool lady because she liked to do lots of camp outs. She liked to do a lot of painting outside, actually. They called it en plein air. And that would mean just to get outside and paint in the nice fresh air and paint what you see. So she would spend a lot of time doing that, which is kind of cool. So now I'm drawing, this is the other part of the branch. Here's the second part of the branch over here. And this is where the tree goes up. And I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm going to draw this branch going like this and continuing up like this. Now, one other thing about Emily Carr is that she did mostly, she used a lot of big round shapes. So if I'm going to do the green foliage or the leaves on this tree, they might look something like that. And even though I'm not seeing all the individual leaves, that's okay. It would sort of make this sort of big, sort of ovally, circle-y type shape. And same with these ones over here. I might make a shape like this. And to do what that sort of part of the tree would look like. Okay. So now I've done the front of my picture. When I go to paint this, I'm going to make these look really detailed so that I can see more details on them. And as things get further away from me, I'm not going to see as many details. So I'm going to draw my next line kind of a little, this is like the middle of my page. I'm going to draw a little lower than that. So I'm going to draw another little wavy line going across here. And then I'm going to draw some more trees. These trees are going to be a little, like not as fat as these ones, because these ones are up close. They're going to look bigger. So I'm going to make them a little skinnier, maybe like this. I'm just going to make them go straight up. Unfortunately, I only see the trunks of these trees because they're pretty far back compared to the front trees. They're in what we call the middle ground of our picture. This is the foreground or the front of the picture. This is the middle ground, or things that are in the middle. And I'll draw another one in the middle right here. And now at the very back, I'm going to draw another line. So kind of like close to where my branches go up. I'll draw another line right here. Again, a wavy line to kind of replicate Emily Carr's sort of way of painting. And now I'm going to draw up here just some really like skinny, I'll just do two lines. That's a tree trunk. So I'm just going to make a couple lines. And then again, because they're so far away, I don't see very much of them, just see a little bit of them. I might only see the bottom of it like that. And I'm not going to see the leaves for these ones. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. Now the fun part. So we're going to get a brush. So take a brush that you feel is, especially for the back, you want to take a smaller brush if you can, because there's not a lot of space back there. And we're going to do something called double loading. Again, another strategy that Emily Carr used often. So sometimes people would mix their paint ahead of time if I wanted to make it a nice light blue back there. But something that Emily Carr did a lot is she would double load her brush. So you would put it into two colors at the same time. So I have white and blue on there at the same time. And I'm just going to use it. I'm not going to mix it together. I'm just going to let it kind of blend together as I paint with it. You'll notice this brush is almost a little too fat. I need a thinner one. You'll notice that as I'm painting here, just a teeny tiny bit of blue. You'll notice that as I paint, you can sort of see that bit of movement happen as and you'll see these types of lines a lot in Emily Carr's pictures. So the tricky part here is kind of remembering where your trees are. You don't want to paint your trees blue, so maybe take a second to just take a look at it and remember before you start. So we're going to paint all of our sky first. We can kind of tell where our trees are. And if you paint a little bit over onto your tree, you can just wipe it off with a Kleenex or with a finger even. Just take your time, have some fun. I think I should have some music on. Okay. So my sky is finished. So now I'm going to either take another brush or wash that brush. And I'm going to do my trees now. So same as before, I'm going to do the double loading method. So things that are further away from us are going to look lighter in color. So I'm going to take a lot of white and just a tiny touch of my brown. Or maybe. And I'm going to use that to paint these very far away tree trunks. They're very, very far in the background. Okay, and it's okay if it's not perfect because when we go over top of them, like if I go over my tree trunk goes a little bit onto my sky, it's not a big deal because when I paint over top of it later, or when I use my black later on, I can sort of fix it up with my black Sharpie marker. Okay, those are my far away ones. Now I'm going to do the middle ground trunk. So they're going to be a little darker. So I'm going to put quite a bit of brown on with my white. So again, it's kind of double loading my brush here. And you see that those are a bit darker than the last ones were because they're a little closer. So I can see a little more details. The color pops a bit more. Okay, so now we're back. We've done those. I'm going to quickly go now to the front tree. So we've done a few tints. When you add a color to white, that makes a tint. But now you need to make a shade because we want to make it a little darker. So when we make a shade, we add black. So I'm going to add my brown, and I'm going to dip my brush into the black as well. So I have them both on the same paintbrush. And I'm going to sort of, now it's a little too black. So if I made it too black, that's okay. Just go back into your brown and put a bit more brown on top and sort of pull it through and it'll kind of fix itself. So don't worry if you kind of make a mistake. The paint can be kind of forgiving like that, which is kind of nice. Okay, and then you're just going to kind of finish up painting those trunks. Kind of paint them from, I've been painting mine in one stroke so that it kind of all goes in one direction. But it might be a little hard on these branches to do that. We'll see how I do here. So again, a little black, a little brown, and just kind of pull it down. I think I need a skinnier brush again. We'll see. If you don't have any skinnier brushes, something I sometimes like to do is I like to use Q-tips will often work pretty well. So not the skinniest thing, but or sometimes even toothpicks, depending on what you're doing. But and the last one, I'll take a little brown and a little black. I'll do the same thing over here. Again, that might be a little too much black, but you can always just fix it by getting a little bit more paint. Oh, I did a little too much black again. I think Mrs. Victor is a little having too much fun with the black over here. Actually, I kind of like it. I think it's looking nice. It's kind of fun too, sort of as an experiment to see how colors go together. Now, my first group, I think most people did an amazing job. Some people weren't happy with how the colors went when you put them together. And if that happens to you, you can either add, like I said, either add a little bit more of one color or take away a little bit more of one color. So it's kind of like you're experimenting and making art at the same time, which is pretty fun. But also remember, it's kind of just playful. Now, I'm going to be doing this part here, sort of like the ground in the forest. So again, when things are further back, they're going to be lighter in color. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to start with my green and my white. So I'm going to make my green and my yellow actually. So I'll take my green, and I'm going to add a little yellow into that. A little green. Once I'm happy with what I have, I'm going to kind of dab it on here. So this dabbing will kind of make it look like it's, or the goal is that the dabbing will kind of make it look, it'll give like a texture to it. And I'll do this whole back part the same color. And then when we get to this part here in the middle, we'll change the color a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to do the middle part. So this part I want to see a little darker. So I'm going to use a lot of green with just a tiny bit of yellow this time. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. And that's not nice. We're going to go to the front, or the front ground, or the foreground. Not called front ground, it's called foreground. Sorry about that. And we're going to add some green. And this time, because it's going to be a little bit darker, we're going to add a little bit of like blue to it too. So a little blue and a little green. And if you start to put your grass on, or your whatever greenery you have in the front of the forest, and you feel like your green is a little too, it turns out too blue. One of the kids in my class last time didn't like that. So you can always just change it by adding a little bit more green to it. Put your more green on your brush and try it that way. Okay, now we're going to do kind of the same thing to the top of the trees. So I'm going to slide this down so you can see it better. So top of the trees here, I'm going to start with a new brush because this one's kind of dirty. And actually, I'm going to use a really big brush for this one just to try and speed up my time here. And the little ones at home might want to use bigger brushes for this part too, just because, you know, it makes it a little faster. You might not have the, you know, strength in your hand to keep dabbing like that. So I'm going to first dab my paintbrush into my green paint, and then I'm going to stick it into my yellow paint, because this is going to be like the top of the trees, and the top of the trees are going to be hit by the sun, so they're going to have the most light. Try to remember where your line was, because we're going to need that line after when we go back to go over top of your artwork. This is like I really should have put down a tray first. So if you have a tray or something at home that you can put down first before you start to paint, it's a really good idea so you don't get paint all over your table. Always make sure you help to clean up. Mommies and daddies are so kind to help us get all the materials ready for this great art week that we're doing, but we want to make sure that we help to do the cleaning with that too, okay? So make sure you spend some time to help your family members with cleanup, or even just to give them a big hug and say thank you too, okay? I'm putting another darker green on here. Now I'm going to double load my brush one more time, and I'm going to put quite a bit of blue on this time. Just a little bit of green this time. And we'll see what that looks like. Oh, it's much darker. Okay, there we go. So it will look kind of like that. And I will show you in just a minute. To speed things up, I will let it dry. And I will show you in a minute what it will look like when you put your lines on top. So you're just going to go over it and trace all the lines with either Sharpie or pastel, black pastel, or black pencil crayon. So as you can see, this isn't the exact same one that I just had, another one I was doing. But once you're done, you can go over and you can paint over all your lines, or just take a black Sharpie or a black marker and do that. Once you've done all your lines again in black to make them sort of pop, you can take your black and also, using a very thin brush, you can, if you like, maybe even water it down your brush a little bit, make some lines or some details on your tree, like almost like you would see in the bark, if you like. Now you would make this on your front trees, but not so much on your back trees, because your back trees would be too far away to see those kinds of details. So you don't have to add that if you don't want to, but if you want to, you could. And that's it. Voila, your Emily Carr inspired tree landscape. I hope you had fun, and I hope maybe you'll even make more than one. Maybe you'll make one or two or three of them. Maybe you'll experiment and try drawing different things using the double loading or the landscape technique. Well, thank you for watching and have fun, and we'll see you.